This Saturday is UFC Vegas 88, Tai Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura, and this is going to be my full card predictions. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you a quick breakdown and prediction. And this UFC Apex card is horrible, to be quite honest. There's a couple fights that I'm interested in, but this week's card and next week's card, we really have to suffer through. And then we have a decent fight night card in Atlantic City, but we're really waiting for UFC 300. But let's start off with the very first fight of the night. Chad Anheliger versus Charalampos Grigoriou. Chad Anheliger, 37 years old, on a 2-fight losing streak, got submitted in his last fight by Jose Johnson. Fight before that, lost to Anheliger. His last win's against Jesse Schrader. I mean, that's a horrible win. You know, that was a while ago too. That was 2 years ago. Then you have Charalampos Grigoriou coming in on a 4-fight stoppage win streak. His last loss was 3 years ago against Christian Rodriguez, who happens to be fighting on the same card. Has nasty power, nasty leg kicks. And I just think, you know, you look at Chad Anheliger, he's going to want to grapple. He's gritty. He can take some decent shots. He took some decent shots from Anheliger. I think Charalampos is going to buzzsaw through him. I think he's going to rock him early, and I think he's going to finish him early. I think the striking of Charalampos Grigoriou is way better than the striking of Chad Anheliger. Then you take the fact that he's 37 years old, 31 years old for Grigoriou. So a 6-year youth advantage. Then Grigoriou has a slight height and reach advantage. And all the momentum go on his side as well. So I'm going to go Grigoriou first round KO against Chad Anheliger. I just don't think a 37-year-old Chad Anheliger gets it done. Moving up on the card, we have Cory McKenna versus Jaqueline Amorim. This is a tough fight to pick. Honestly, this is one of those matchups that could go either way, and I was flipping back and forth. McKenna, decent striking, kind of low level, wants to grapple, wants to clinch. Coming off a win over Cheyenne Velismus, coming off a win over Miranda Granger where she got a Von Flue choke. She lost to Elise Reed via split decision 2 years ago. Jaqueline Amorim coming off a win over Ruiz. Before that, a win over, or loss against Sam Hughes where she gassed out after dominating the first round. Amorim really has no striking. She just wants to grapple and use her BJJ. And I think McKenna, you know, she's a grappler. She has decent grappling. She doesn't have the BJJ skills of Amorim, but I think it's going to be one of those fights where it kind of cancels each other out. The grappling cancels each other out. I don't think Amorim's going to be able to get a takedown. You know, I think she could, but I think McKenna will be able to stuff the takedowns. Honestly, I think she'll be able to stuff the takedowns. Amorim did work on her cardio after, you know, the first fight where she gassed. She came out, went 3 rounds, got a 3rd round finish against Ruiz. So that's why I'm kind of back and forth on this fight, because I could see Amorim getting her down and maybe getting a submission, but I'm going to go Cory McKenna via decision. I think it's going to be a close fight. I think if McKenna does get taken down, I think she's able to avoid the submission. So I'm going to go like a 29-28 decision win for Cory McKenna. Moving up on the card, we have Josh Culibao versus Danny Silva. This is actually a really good fight. I'm looking forward to this matchup. Danny Silva coming off a absolute war on Dana White's Contender Series. Lucky he took a decent amount of time off 5 months ago. Before that, a win in LFA via KO, and then before that, a loss in LFA against a guy who's 6-2. You know, and then you have Josh Culibao coming off a loss against Lerone Murphy, where he had a decent showing, kind of got out-grappled in that fight, did okay in the striking, landed some good shots in the striking. Before that, a solid win over Melsik Bogdasarian, where he dropped him, immediately locked up the rear naked choke. And Danny Silva has nasty power, nasty pressure. He has amazing cardio. The volume he had on Dana White's Contender Series was just phenomenal, but he was very hittable in that fight. And also, some of these guys on Dana White's Contender Series, you can just watch them fight and you see they're very amateurish. And that's what the kind of vibe I get from Danny Silva. And I think Josh Culibao, super well-rounded, has grappling that he can use, offensive grappling. He has decent defensive grappling as well. Danny Silva, I think he shot in on 1 takedown in the fight on Dana White's Contender Series. I think he may have gotten it, but the guy scrambled right back up. I'm going to go Josh Culibao. I just think more experienced, more well-rounded, and I just think he's not going to sit there and trade with him like the guy on Dana White's Contender Series did. And I think Josh Culibao can mix in his grappling and win this fight. And I think he's going to be outstriking him from the outside, picking him apart a little bit. And then I think Danny Silva is going to resort to trying to grapple. And I think Culibao is going to have an advantage in the grappling. But I see it being a very competitive fight. I'm going to go Culibao 29-28 decision. Moving up on the card, we have Thiago Moisés versus Mitch Ramirez. This is kind of a trap fight in a way because, you know, gut always tells you go Thiago Moisés against a guy, Mitch Ramirez, making his UFC debut. A guy who lost on Dana White's Contender Series, but he lost to Carlos Prates, who just recently got a KO over Trevin Giles. And Thiago Moisés lost 3 out of his last 5, but look at the competition. He lost to Benoit Saint-Denis and had some moments in that fight, but got slaughtered by Benoit Saint-Denis. Win over Melquizel Costa, win over Christos Giagos, then a loss to Yoel Alvarez, lost to Islam Makhachev. So look at the level of competition he's losing to. Meanwhile, Mitch Rodriguez beat up a guy who's 5-0 in his last fight. Mitch Rodriguez has like mediocre striking, but he primarily wants to grapple. And what is Thiago Moisés' specialty? It's his grappling and his BJJ. So I'm going to go Thiago Moisés. I thought for a while Thiago Moisés was criminally underrated. I think his striking has gotten better. His grappling has always been good. His BJJ has always been good. Has a bunch of submissions on his resume. And I just think, Mitch Ramirez, maybe he could win this fight via decision. But I just see him, losing to Thiago Moisés. I think Moisés is probably going to be the better striker. I think Moisés definitely has better BJJ. Mitch Ramirez is relatively inexperienced. 9 fights total, lost one of them. And then meanwhile, you have Moisés, who has 24 fights total in his MMA career. So massive experience gap. And it's not like Moisés is old. I know he's been around for a while. He's only 28 years old. So Ramirez is actually older than him. I have to go Thiago Moisés. I'm going to give Ramirez a little bit of respect, though. I'm going to give him a little bit of respect. I'm going to say he survives a decision. I think he's going to be close to getting submitted a couple times on the ground because he's going to shoot in on takedowns because Moisés is landing on the feet and Ramirez primarily wants to grapple. But I'm going to say he's going to survive on the ground against Moisés. I wanted to pick Moisés via submission, but, Ramirez never lost via submission. And then, I get it. It's a big step up in competition, but I'm going to go Moisés winning via decision. Better striker, better grappler, reverses position against Ramirez. I could see him locking up a guillotine as Ramirez shoots on a takedown, but I'm going to say Moisés gets it done 30-27 decision. Moving up on the card, we have Osbourne versus Jafel Filho. Osbourne, man, he has a problem with grapplers. He's coming off a loss against Asul Almabayev, who's a very good grappler, got taken down, rear naked choked. Before that, split decision win over Charles Johnson, razor close fight. Before that, got KO'd by Tyson Nam. Before that, a win, that wasn't that good. A guy is 4-3. Before that, a win over CJ Vergara, which is an okay win, not really that great. Filho's coming off a win over Daniel Perez, where he submitted him. And then before that, had a competitive fight with Muhammad Makayev. And Filho has decent striking. He has good grappling, has good BJJ. Almost had a submission against Makayev. He's younger. He's 2 years younger. They're the same height. Has a reach disadvantage for Filho. I think it's clearly kind of a grappler versus striker, but Filho has striking as well, has good power as well. I think Osbourne, if he can keep it on the feet, I think he can win this fight, but I don't think he's going to be able to keep it on the feet. I see Filho dragging him to the ground. Osbourne, he can only keep it standing for so long, and his problem, his Achilles heel for so long, has been his takedown defense. And Filho has good striking, has good grappling, has 9 wins via submission. He has 15 wins total. 9 of those are via submission. So I'm going to see, I'm going to guess that Filho gets him down. I'm going to guess that Filho finds a submission. I'm going to go second round rear naked choke for Filho against Osbourne. Moving up on the card, we have Josiane Nunes versus Chelsea Chandler. Chelsea Chandler should not be in the UFC after what she did against Norma Dumont in her last fight. It was an embarrassment. She ran straight for the fence. It's crazy that's been almost 8 months ago now, according to Topology. Chelsea Chandler has some okay grappling. Her striking is horrible. When she gets clipped, she runs for the hills. Josiane Nunes likes to move forward, throw big power shots, has decent grappling as well, honestly. But she was eating strikes against Zara Farron in her last fight, but Zara Farron's massive. I mean, they look like 3 weight classes apart in that. And she still won, ultimately. And she's on a longer winning streak, not against great competition. I mean, look at the competition. Nunes is fighting 3-0, 4-0, 2-0, 6-2, 6-4. Chelsea Chandler lost to Norma Dumont, win over Julia Stolarenko, then a win over Courtney King outside the UFC. So neither one of them was fighting good competition. Chelsea Chandler's 5-2 overall, 10-1 for Nunes. I'm going Josiane Nunes by decision. I think she could finish her on the ground. I think she's going to be the better striker. She has good enough grappling to get out of bad situations on the ground with Chandler. Chandler just wants to get you down, get on top of you, and land ground and pound. I think Nunes is just too big, too strong. She's not really that big, to be quite honest, but she's too strong. Good power on the feet. I think she's going to clip Chandler up. Wouldn't surprise me if Nunes TKO'd her, to be quite honest. But I'm going to go Nunes just to outstrike her and win a decision. I'm going to say a 30-27 decision for Josiane Nunes. If Chelsea Chandler can get her down and hold her down, Chandler would have to win that way, but I don't think it's going to happen. Nunes is good in the clinch, and it's not like Chandler's some excellent wrestler where she has good entry. She gets you up against the fence and looks for takedowns. Nunes is very good in the clinch, very powerful in the clinch, so I'm going to go Nunes via decision. Moving up on the card, we have Mike Davis versus Natan Levy. This is actually a tough fight to pick. Mike Davis, good grappling, good striking as well, coming off a win over Slava Klaus in his last fight, but he was getting touched up in that fight quite a bit, and I think it was his grappling threat was the reason why he had success on the feet. Before that, a win over Mason Jones, who's no longer in the UFC. And his only loss in the last, that's crazy. That was 4 years, 9 months ago. He lost to Gilbert Burns, but that doesn't really matter because it was so long ago. Hasn't been that active, honestly. Mike Davis hasn't been that active. In the last 3 years, he's fought 2 times. Natan Levy hasn't fought in over a year. His last fight was against Gerardo Valdez. Got a win there. Before that, a win over Mike Breeden, who's an absolute bum. Before that, lost to Rafa Garcia. This is a tough fight to pick. Natan Levy likes to strike, has grappling. His striking primarily relies on his kicks. Mike Davis primarily relies on his boxing, but mixes in the grappling threat. I honestly think the grappling's kind of equal in this matchup, and I think it's going to come down to the striking. And I think Natan Levy's the better striker, honestly. And I think if Natan Levy isn't worried about the grappling, I think he's going to have more success on the feet. So I'm going to go Natan Levy in this fight. I'm going to say that basically his kicks are the difference in this fight. He lands good kicks to the body. He's a southpaw, and Mike Davis is orthodox, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Davis is orthodox, Levy southpaw, so that body kick is wide open. So if Levy gets a finish, I could see like a body kick TKO, but I'm going to go Natan Levy to land the better shots on the feet. I think Davis is going to try to grapple, but he's going to get stuffed. I think there'll be some good scrambles. I think it'll be a competitive fight. So I'll go 29-28 decision for Natan Levy. I feel like I'm picking a lot of decisions on this card. Moving up on the card, we have Gerald Meerschaert versus Bryan Barberena. Barberena has no business being at middleweight. Honestly, absolutely no business being at middleweight. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. Got out-grappled by Makhmud Muradov in his last fight. Got out-grappled by Gunnar Nelson in the fight before that. Got out-grappled by Rafael dos Anjos in the last fight. Got submitted in that one. So got submitted in 2 out of his last 3 fights. Got out-grappled in one of them. What's Gerald Meerschaert known for? His grappling, his submission ability. Gerald Meerschaert coming off loss to Andre Petroski. Close fight. Won the 3rd round. Before that, lost to Joe Pyfer. No shame in that. Before that, beat Bruno Silva by submission, but hurt him badly on the feet. I almost said KO. And, I know Gerald Meerschaert's old. He's 36 years old. Bryan Barberena is 34. Bryan Barberena is definitely the better striker. So if he can keep this on the feet, he can outstrike Meerschaert. I see Bryan Barberena maybe winning the first round with his striking and volume, and he does have good power, but it's another weight class. I don't think he's putting out Gerald Meerschaert, who's shown to be decently durable, and it's up a weight class. Barberena's power, honestly, I think Barberena's probably like a natural lightweight with the way weight classes are structured nowadays. I got to go Gerald Meerschaert in this one. I think he outgrapples Bryan Barberena. I can see Barberena winning early, but as the fight goes on, Gerald Meerschaert will have his moments. Eventually, somehow create a scramble, whether it's Barberena slipping or Meerschaert catching him on the feet and hurting him badly, and then finding a submission from there. I'm going to go Gerald Meerschaert. I'm going to say 2nd round arm triangle. I'm going to say somehow they get to the ground, whether it's a takedown or a slip or a punch that rocks Barberena, or Barberena just has low fight IQ and tries to initiate the grappling. And I think Gerald Meerschaert will end up finding the arm triangle. Gerald Meerschaert has 27 wins by submission, 35 wins total, 27 wins by submission. That's crazy. And I just think Bryan Barberena is just showing up for paychecks nowadays. It just seems like, he's been around forever. He's 18-11. And I feel like these guys are on similar, career paths in a way. But I think Meerschaert, jiu-jitsu advantage. He's at a striking disadvantage for sure, but Barberena has no business being at middleweight. So I think Meerschaert will be strong enough to find a way to get him to the ground if you can't catch him on the feet. And I think he'll find a submission. So I'm going Gerald Meerschaert, 2nd round submission. And I think that's the first fight on the main card. Yeah, that's the first fight on the main card. Moving up on the card. Why is this on the main card? Pannie Kianzad versus Macy Chiasson 2. This is a rematch from many years ago on the Ultimate Fighter finale where Macy Chiasson got a rear naked choke. That was a competitive fight up until that point. Pannie Kianzad, relatively inactive. Last fight was 7 months ago against Ketlin Vieira. Before that, 2 years ago against Lena Landsberg, where she got clipped in that fight. And then before that, lost to Raquel Pennington. Macy Chiasson, inactive as well. It's crazy how many inactive fighters on this card. Hasn't fought in a year and a half since that loss. That up kick to the body TKO loss to Irene Aldana that she was winning. Before that, a win over Norma Dumont, split decision. Before that, a loss to Raquel Pennington. The big question in this fight is, can Macy Chiasson make weight? Because the last fight against Irene Aldana was a catch weight. I think the fight before that was a catch weight against Norma Dumont, or it was at 145. And I think she missed weight against Raquel Pennington as well. So I don't know if Macy Chiasson can make 135. These are 145ers whose careers were ended basically by Nunes' retirement. And now the UFC is still booking them at 135, saying you got to fight at 135, and they can't make weight. So I have a feeling this could end up getting canceled, or Chiasson's going to miss weight and lose 30% of her purse. I think Kianzad has a striking advantage. I think Chiasson has a grappling advantage. And I think Chiasson will be able to out-grapple her again. And I think Chiasson's gotten better since they fought on The Ultimate Fighter many years ago. Kianzad really kind of stayed the same. And I think Chiasson will be able to find the takedowns. Also a much larger fighter, in my opinion. Chiasson's much bigger than Pannie Kianzad. I think she'll be able to bully her. She'll be physically stronger. I see Chiasson getting her down, beating her up, maybe finding a submission win again. But I'm going to say it goes to decision. I'm going to say Chiasson gets it done, 30-27 decision win. Moving up on the card, we have Christian Rodriguez versus Isaac Dalgarian. Something shocked me about this fight. 71% on Tapology is picking Christian Rodriguez. Do they not realize he's moving up a weight class? He's moving up to featherweight here because he can't make weight at bantamweight. Christian Rodriguez is the definition of a weight bully. Missing weight and then winning fights at a weight class where a guy made weight. Coming off a win over Cameron Simon, fair enough. Out-grappled him, outstruck him. Before that, beat Raul Rosas Jr. Was in trouble in the first round, got taken down, controlled a bit. Raul was looking for a rear naked choke. Fight before that, beat Joshua Williams, submitted him. Last loss was against Jonathan Pierce 2 years ago. Christian Rodriguez is a really good prospect, but it's a whole different ball game when you're coming up a weight class to 145 against Isaac Dalgarian, who's 6-0, all finishes. Last fight against Francis Marshall, Dalgarian absolutely beat the dog shit out of Francis Marshall and got a first-round TKO from full mount with nasty elbows, really bludgeoned him badly. And I think what this fight comes down to is the weight class change. If everything is even, let's say they're evenly skilled everywhere, the bigger guy's always going to win if they're evenly skilled. So even if it's, you have a slightly higher skill, but the other guy's bigger and you're close enough, the bigger guy can win. And I think Isaac Dalgarian and Rodriguez has similar levels of grappling, but honestly, I would favor Dalgarian with his grappling. I think he's just bigger, stronger, has more powerful ground and pound, and also he has a submission ability as well. And I know Rodriguez is a decent striker. I would give Rodriguez the striking advantage. I think Dalgarian will be able to find takedowns. There were moments where, Cameron Simon escaped and ended up on the back briefly of Rodriguez. If he does that against Dalgarian, Dalgarian's going to find a finish after that. So I think Dalgarian going to be too big, too strong, too violent with his ground and pound. I see Rodriguez having to keep this on the feet if he wants to win the fight. It's probably the best fight on the card, to be quite honest. And I know I'm saying Dalgarian, I'm leaning towards Dalgarian winning, but I think this is a very compelling fight. If Rodriguez, maybe he filled out, maybe he filled out since his last fight 4 months ago or 5 months ago. Maybe he's filled out and he's going to have increased strength and whatever, but I just think Dalgarian's going to be too strong for him. I think Rodriguez should be at 135, but he just hasn't been managing, his weight well enough. So I think Dalgarian will find a takedown. I think he'll be able to control him. I think he'll beat him up a bit. I think Rodriguez is good enough to survive the first round on the ground. I'm going to go Dalgarian's second round ground and pound TKO. Maybe even finds a submission while he's throwing ground and pound, locks up a rear naked choke, locks up an arm triangle. I think Dalgarian's just too good, man. I think he's too good. Rodriguez has been bullying, look at pause. I don't want to be talking about grown men's bodies, but look at Dalgarian's body compared to someone like Cameron Simon. Cameron Simon looks like a 13-year-old girl compared to Isaac Dalgarian. That is how much bigger and stronger Dalgarian is. So I think Rodriguez is in for a rude awakening, and I think he's going to be begging the UFC to go back down to bantamweight. I'm going Dalgarian's second round TKO ground and pound. Moving up on the card, the featured fight on the card, Kennedy Nzechukwu versus OSP, Ovince St. Preux. What a garbage featured fight on the card, to be quite honest. OSP is washed up. I don't want to see him fight anymore. He's 40 years old, going on 41. Lost to Felipe Lins. Felipe Lins brutally KO'd him. Fight before that got a win over Mauricio Shogun Rua, was a split decision win against the dead corpse. The dead corpse of Shogun Rua. Before that, lost to Tanner Boser at heavyweight. Before that, lost to Jamal Hill. Okay, no shame in that. Before a win over Alonzo Menefield. So that's decent, but that's 4 years ago almost. And Nzechukwu coming off a loss against Dustin Jacoby. Got clipped early. Was doing actually well against Dustin Jacoby. Got clipped early, got finished. But before that, win over Devin Clark. Win over Iwan Kutalaba. Win over Carl Robertson. All by finish. Ovince St. Preux is going to get brutalized in this fight. And Nzechukwu is huge as well. What's the difference? A 2-inch height advantage for Nzechukwu. 3-inch reach advantage for Nzechukwu. I think OSP is going to get destroyed in this fight. I'm going to go Kennedy Nzechukwu first round KO. He's going to be pressuring OSP. OSP is going to be up against the fence like he normally is, looking for a big shot, but sometimes he's just up against the fence, unwilling to throw and unable to get off, I guess because he's worried of getting clipped. And OSP, when's the last time he's actually mixed in any grappling? I don't even remember at this point. So I think OSP's a dead body, 41 years old, damn near, going on 41 years old, and Nzechukwu 31 years old. So we're looking at a 10-year use advantage. And even if OSP was in his prime, I think Nzechukwu is better than him. Good in the clinch, good power strikes, decent enough grappling. I think Kennedy Nzechukwu goes out there and flatlines OSP in the first round and sends him into retirement. Moving up on the card to the co-main event, Bryan Battle versus Ange Losa. This is actually an interesting fight. It's crazy this is a co-main event, though. It just doesn't feel right, honestly. Bryan Battle coming off a win over AJ Fletcher, finished in via rear naked choke, got hurt badly in the first round. Before that, a KO win over Gabe Green in like the first minute of the fight. Before that, loss against Renat Fakhretdinov, where he got just completely out-grappled and dominated. So not a horrible loss to have. You have Angelusa coming off a win over Reese McKee, coming off a win over AJ Fletcher. Got hurt in second round, I think, against him. Absolutely looked like he was about to get finished by AJ Fletcher, but survived and won the fight. Before that, loss against Minor Lizez. Before that, a win against John Howard in a different organization. And lost on Dana White's Contender Series against JDM. Talk about a short straw there. This is a tough fight to pick. Bryan Battle's a decent striker, relies on his kicks. Angelusa, decent technical ability on the feet. I think he's definitely more technical striker of the two. Has decent grappling as well, decent takedown defense. Bryan Battle has decent grappling, decent offensive wrestling. His takedown defense is a little bit questionable, but it's not like Losa wants to go out there and wrestle nonstop. The one question I have in this fight, and a massive advantage I think is for Bryan Battle, I think it's stamina-wise. Losa kind of starts to fade later on in the fights. Even in fights he's winning, he starts to fade later on. And, I could see that being a problem against a guy like Bryan Battle who can go and go. I mean, even against Renat where he's getting destroyed, he never gave up. He could have found a way out multiple times in that fight, never gave up. I think he's gotten better since then. I think he's good on the feet. I see Losa maybe winning the first round with his striking, but I see as the fight goes on and he starts to kind of wear down, I think Battle with his gas tank is going to end up, starting to win the fight midway through the second round, really start to pull out ahead, mix in his grappling, get Losa down, get some control time. I see it being a mildly close fight. Maybe Losa wins the first round, but then Bryan Battle starts to take over, kick teeps to the body. Bryan Battle has really good kicks, and he has decent power too, so I could see him like stinging him with a right hand, putting him to sleep. I mean, he put Gabe Green down nasty. So I'm going to go Bryan Battle. How am I going to pick him to win? I'm going to go Bryan Battle. I'm going to say he gets a decision win, to be quite honest. I think Angelusa is very good. I think he gets tired, but I think he's good enough where he'll be able to survive the onslaught of Bryan Battle. It's not like Bryan Battle's going out there and just chinning everyone. And, unless Angelusa gets tired, maybe rear naked choke third round, I could see Battle getting it done like that. But I'm going to go Battle via decision. I'm going to say he wins the second and third round, loses the first round, but picks up the pace in the second and third when he realizes Angelusa starts to get tired. And I see him getting it done. And I could see him getting a finish in this fight, to be honest. But Angelusa, if he can maintain his stamina, and he's worked on his stamina a bit, I could see him being the more technical striker over 3 rounds and outstriking Bryan Battle. But I'm going Bryan Battle via decision. Moving up on the card to the main event, Tai Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura. Ew. What a horrible main event, to be quite honest. This does not belong in a main event. This was like buried on a pay-per-view somewhere at one point in time, but then they needed a main event for this, so they just moved it over to here. I mean, is this really a hard pick? I know Tai Tuivasa is on a 3-fight losing streak, but look at the level of competition he's facing. Alexander Volkov got submitted there, was losing in that fight. Sergey Pavlovich got chinned there. Before that, got finished by Cyril Gane, but actually rocked Cyril Gane in that fight. His last win's against Derek Lewis. Win before that against Augustus Sakai. Marcin Tybura coming off an absolute getting starched by Tom Aspinall, but no shame in that. Win over Blagoy Ivanov, decision win, horrible fight. Win over Alexander Romanov, decision win, horrible fight. Lost against Alexander Volkov, but actually went to a decision. And then a win against Walt Harris. He's 38 years old too. I'm going Tai Tuivasa first round KO. Marcin Tybura is just, he's just Mr. Mediocre in a division that's just absolutely atrocious once you get outside that top 5. He is okay. He's not like a Josh Parisian, but he's just a step ahead of that. He's just a step ahead of like outright garbage. It's crazy to me how bad the heavyweight division is. And Tai Tuivasa has nasty power, nasty durability. His grappling is kind of his hole in his game, but it's not like Tybura is some elite level wrestler, So, Tybura would have to grapple his way to a victory, but against a first round Tai Tuivasa, I don't think that happens. Tai Tuivasa, nasty leg kicks, nasty power in the clinch, super durable, super powerful in the hands. I think Tuivasa comes out here and chins him in like the first 2.5 minutes. I don't see how Tybura wins this fight. Tuivasa has decent cardio too. That was a crazy output against Cyril Gane. He was able to at least survive a decent amount into the fight. I can't remember what round, if it got finished in the third round or not. I think that's what it was. I just don't see a way Tybura wins this fight. What's he going to outstrike him? Even if he outstrikes him, I see Tai Tuivasa finding his chin. So I'm going Tai Tuivasa first round KO. I would be shocked if somehow Marcin Tybura pulled off a win here. And it would have to be like an ugly, horrible decision, or maybe like a 4th round TKO. I can't imagine if this fight gets to the 4th round. They're both going to look horrible in the 4th round of this fight. So I'm going Tai Tuivasa by KO in the first round. First 2 minutes, easy work for Tai Tuivasa. Gets back on the winning track. Horrible Apex main event. overall, there's a couple fights I'm looking forward to on this card. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.